Romy had always believed she understood life well enough. She was 23, bright-eyed, beautiful in soft and delicate ways, and raised by a loving family who treated respect as the foundation of every relationship. Even when people wronged her, she tried to forgive. Even when situations got tight, she tried to smile. She believed naively. Some would later say that hearts could be changed with kindness. Her life changed the day she married Ethan, a calm, polite man from a middle-class family. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. Nothing extravagant, nothing loud. For Romy, it was perfect. It felt like the start of a peaceful journey. But the moment she stepped into Ethan's home, she felt something was not right. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Dalton, looked like a woman carved from stone, tall, rigid, posture sharp enough to slice silence in half. Her expression held no warmth, not even polite curiosity. Her lips pressed into a thin line the entire time Romy stood near her. Romy had walked into many homes in her life, but she had never felt so unwelcome. Mrs. Dalton made no effort to hide it. "Keep your things in the small room," she said sharply. "We don't believe in newlywed luxuries here." Ethan gave Romy an apologetic look, but said nothing. That was Romy's first warning. Her second came that very evening, as Romy served tea to the family, her hands slightly shaky from the long day. Mrs. Dalton scowled. "You don't know how to hold a cup properly," she snapped. "This is what girls learn in your home. God knows what other bad habits you have." Romy froze. Ethan sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact. His father didn't speak. His younger sister smirked quietly. Romy forced a soft smile. "I'm sorry. I'll be careful." But inside, she felt something twist. From that day onward, insults became a daily routine. If the food was too salty, Mrs. Dalton blamed Romy. If the clothes were not folded exactly her way, she blamed Romy. If Ethan came home tired, she hissed, "See? This is what happens when men marry girls who know nothing about care." It didn't matter what Romy did. Her mother-in-law found faults like it was her profession. Yet Romy kept trying. She woke early, cooked, cleaned, washed, ironed, smiled through all her exhaustion, and truly hoped that someday her efforts would be seen. But Mrs. Dalton had her own mission: to break Romy, and she did not hide it. Every night, Romy cried quietly in the tiny room, making sure her sobs were silent enough not to disturb the house or give her mother-in-law the satisfaction that her cruelty was working. Yet deep inside, something inside, Romy was slowly hardening, because kindness could soften stone, but only if the stone wanted to soften. Mrs. Dalton did not. She enjoyed watching Romy bend, and she wasn't planning to stop anytime soon. The real war began the day Mrs. Dalton started poisoning Ethan's mind. It happened slowly: soft comments, whispered criticisms, exaggerated lies disguised as concerns. One evening, as Romy prepared dinner, she overheard her mother-in-law speaking to Ethan in the next room. "I don't understand why Romy is so careless," Mrs. Dalton said, sighing dramatically. "Today she added too much water to the curry. It was almost inedible." Romy froze. She hadn't even touched the curry yet. Ethan had come home early. The food wasn't even halfway prepared. "Really?" Ethan asked quietly. "Yes, son. She's not serious about this house. I saw her sitting lazily scrolling on her phone. Girls these days don't know responsibility." Romy felt her chest tighten. Every word was a lie, but spoken with such sharp confidence that even truth couldn't fight back. But that was only the beginning. Whenever Romy stepped into the kitchen, her mother-in-law followed like a shadow, watching, observing, waiting for errors. If Romy put an extra pinch of salt, Mrs. Dalton accused her of doing it intentionally. If Romy cooked perfectly, Mrs. Dalton claimed she copied someone else's recipe. Nothing was enough. The worst part came when Mrs. Dalton pretended to act innocent in front of Ethan's son. "I don't want to interfere," she would say in a falsely sweet voice, "but a wife should take care of her responsibilities." I just want you to have a peaceful life." Ethan was gentle but emotionally weak, easily swayed by guilt. When his mother spoke, he listened like a student learning from a strict teacher. Slowly, he began siding with his mother. "Romy, can't you try harder? Mom says you aren't adjusting well. You need to change a bit. It's for peace." Each comment felt like a new crack in Romy's heart. She tried talking to him calmly, respectfully. "Ethan, I really am trying. I wake up early, I work all day, You're arguing again?" Ethan interrupted. "See? This is what Mom meant." That night, Romy cried until her chest hurt. The woman who disliked her had turned into a strategist. And her husband, someone she believed would stand beside her, had turned into a weapon used against her. Mrs. Dalton did not stop there. She began telling relatives that Romy was lazy, disrespectful, and poorly raised. She narrated stories that never happened, incidents twisted beyond truth. Moments replayed in her imagination but presented as facts. Romy heard these things through whispers, through relatives' eyes filled with judgment, through conversations that fell silent the moment she walked into her room. She was being painted as a villain in a story where she was simply trying to survive. Still, Romy did not break. Not yet, but she was getting close. The insults, the lies, the constant humiliation day after day were wearing her down. She prayed at night, prayed for strength, for a solution, for Ethan to understand her pain. But days passed, weeks passed, months passed, and nothing changed. Only one thing grew. Romy's silence was turning into strength, because the more you push a kind heart, the stronger it becomes when it rises. And Romy was rising slowly, quietly, but steadily. Mrs. Dalton had begun a war she thought she would win easily. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The breaking point came on a winter afternoon. It was a quiet day, sunlight leaking through the curtains in pale strips. Romy had cleaned the entire house early and was now preparing lunch. She felt a small, rare moment of peace. Then Mrs. Dalton walked into the kitchen. Her steps were heavy, louder than usual. Her face held an expression Romy had come to fear. "Look, that meant she was here to create chaos, Romy," she said sharply. "What is this?" She held up a shirt-a-thon's shirt, one that Romy had ironed earlier. "What happened?" Romy asked gently. "This." Mrs. Dalton pointed aggressively at a tiny crease near the collar. "Are you blind? Or just intentionally careless?" Romy stayed quiet. "I told you many times how to iron shirts properly. But you don't listen. You just wait for my son to come home so you can show your fake innocence." Romy inhaled deeply. "I'll press it again." Thought that wasn't enough for her mother-in-law. Nothing ever was. "You useless girl," Mrs. Dalton hissed. "My son made the biggest mistake marrying you." Romy felt the words hit her like a slap. Before she could respond, the front door opened. Ethan had returned home. Earlier than expected, Mrs. Dalton's eyes lit up. This was her chance. She stepped out and immediately began wailing dramatically. "Son, look what she did. She doesn't respect this house. I worked my whole life to raise you perfectly, and now this girl is ruining everything." Ethan hurried inside. "Mom, calm down. What happened? This girl can't do a single thing right. Look at your shirt. She ruined it." Ethan looked at the shirt. He looked confused, even embarrassed. "It's just a small crease," he said quietly. Mrs. Dalton gasped as though he had said something shocking. "Oh, now you defend her. You think she's better than your own mother?" Romy closed her eyes as the scene unfolded. It was always the same. Always predictable. Always painful. "Mom, please, no." Mrs. Dalton screamed. "Today you decide. Me or her." The house fell into crushing silence. Romy's breath caught. Ethan stared at his mother. His silence lasted too long, too. Too long. Romy felt the answer before he even spoke. "Mom, please don't force me," he whispered. Mrs. Dalton exploded into fake tears. "You see, Romy, even he knows your worth." Something inside Romy snapped. For months, she had tolerated the insults, endured the humiliation, swallowed every pain. hoping things would get better. But this moment where her husband didn't defend her was the final blow. She stepped forward slowly. Her voice came out calm to calm. "Ethan," she said, "do you believe I ruined your shirt on purpose?" He avoided her eyes. "I'm just tired, Romy. You always create issues. I create issues." Her voice shook, but not with fear, with power. For the first time, Ethan and Mrs. Dalton saw something new in her. Not weakness, not innocence, strength. She took a deep breath. "I clean your home. I cook for everyone. I do the laundry, the ironing, the shopping. I never complain. I never raise my voice. And all I ever get in return is anger and insult." Mrs. Dalton stepped forward, but Romy raised her hand. "No, you will not interrupt me today." Those words hit like fire. "You humiliate me daily," Romy continued. "You lie about me. You tell Ethan things I never did. You treat me like unpaid labor. And here son lets you do it." Ethan finally looked at her, shocked to see her speak this way. "I married you because I believed you'd stand beside me," she said quietly. "But you always stood behind your mother, even when she lied." Mrs. Dalton erupted. "Lied. Lead, how dare you stop," Romy said firmly. "I am done being your punching bag. I am done waiting for respect. I am done crying silently." Her voice echoed across the room. "I'm leaving." The words froze everyone. Mrs. Dalton scoffed. "You have no courage." But Romy smiled, calm, confident, unshaken. "I have more courage than you ever expected." And she walked out of the house. She didn't pack much, just a small bag, her phone, a few clothes, her dignity. Ethan didn't stop her. Mrs. Dalton didn't call her. Not a single person asked her to stay for them. She was just a burden leaving, but they had no idea what they just lost in what she was about to become. Romy returned to her parents' home. Her mother embraced her tightly, and her father listened to everything silently. It's heartbreaking for his daughter. "You won't go back there," he said softly. "Not if they don't respect you." For weeks, Romy rested physically, emotionally, spiritually. She cried sometimes, not out of regret, but out of release. The house felt warm again. She felt safe. Then she made a decision. She would rebuild her. Life. Not for revenge. Not to prove anyone wrong, but to find herself again. She enrolled in a business course. She studied late into the night. She learned digital marketing, design, and branding. She started small freelance projects from home. Her work grew quickly. Her confidence grew even faster. Within a year, Romy had built her own online clothing, boutiques, small but stylish, with a loyal customer base. People loved her designs. They loved her warmth. They loved the authenticity in her brand. Romy started earning more than she ever dreamed. She traveled for exhibitions, built connections, appeared in small business interviews, and inspired many women who followed her journey. She became strong not because life was easy, but because life had pushed her in the hardest way possible. One day, a year and a half later, she received a message from Ethan. Romy. "Mom is very sick. She wants to see you," Romy felt. Nothing, no anger, no longing, no pain, just clarity. She agreed to visit not for them, but for closure. When she entered the house, she saw Mrs. Dalton lying on a bed in the living room, weak and pale. Her eyes widened when she saw Romy. For the first time, her mother-in-law looked human, not powerful, not intimidating, just fragile. "You came," she whispered. "Rom." I nodded. She sat beside her. Mrs. Dalton swallowed hard. Her voice trembled. "I was wrong." Romy listened silently. "I hurt you. I destroyed this home with my pride. And now Ethan is alone. The house feels empty." Her voice cracked. "I was a bad mother. A worse mother-in-law." Roma's heart softened, but only slightly. "You can't change the past," she said gently, "but you can acknowledge it." Mrs. Dalton closed her eyes. tears slipping out. I am sorry. Romy. Romy accepted the apology not because she wanted validation, but because she had outgrown the pain. She stood and looked at Ethan. Take care of her, she said softly. He nodded, eyes full of regret. Romy. If I had stood by you but you didn't, she said simply. Silence. A clean, final silence. Romy turned to leave. Will you ever come back? Ethan asked quietly. Romy smiled. A peaceful, honest smile. I already came back to myself. And she walked out, feeling lighter than she had in years. Romy didn't win by fighting. She won by walking away. From disrespect, she rebuilt herself, found strength, found success, and proved without shouting, without revenge, that a woman's worth is not defined by the house she marries into, but by the strength she carries inside her. Her silence was once used against her. Now it was the loudest power she had.